Alright, welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here in Mendham. Yes, so it's going to be a video about inMendham versus Ephilism. Okay, so somehow message versus messenger. And I will explain how, yes, the messenger could be a bit of a jerk, but he's not the criminal, okay, people want to make him out to be. For the purpose of trying to impugn the message by, showing the messenger in a bad light, and that's all they've done. They've thrown mud at the messenger, okay, and the messenger hasn't wasted a bunch of time cleaning it off. And unfortunately, it's just that kind of world where this is what you have to waste your time doing, is explaining to people you shouldn't believe everything somebody else says. Yeah, except me, because, I'm basically honest. Anyway, so yeah, I'll do a little bit of that kind of discussion about the myths that have been spewed as some sort of reasonable rhetoric against me. Okay, when it's not reasonable, it's not fair, and it's not accurate. Okay. But first, okay, I was going to talk about Danny Shine again, just because he had posted the video of our conversation, part of it anyway, and I was pleased with the conversation, although it's really the impossibly difficult circumstance, where nature has contracted against you, or your family even, and you're just stuck with this, is it coming for me now? Is it coming for me? Well, health crisis is just a horrible thing for a human being to have to endure as an experience, and it's sadly very common experience that's very little light is cast on, in terms of people getting a dose of just how bad that is. That it's bad when it's physically bad. It's also bad when it's just threatening to be physically bad. And it's all hard to deal with, and one of the worst experiences of being alive is having to resign yourself to it's your turn to do the the part that's going to cut you in half. It's your turn to be eaten by the dinosaur, kind of crap. It's just impossibly horrible. Frankly, I haven't done it yet, so it's unimaginable in some sense how horrible it can be. And the fact that people are not paused by that reality of our life is scary. Because yes, it's always lingered on my mind. It's always been something I thought about any kind of commitment to anything, because you can't be sure. And that was another reason why I would never even imagine having a kid, because how could you guarantee you're going to be around long enough to, take care of it, to protect it? And like in the case of my sister, yeah, she got 3 years, and that was it. To watch over her child. Yeah, and its destiny was what it is, and I could point out how I think it would have been better if she'd been there for her, but whatever. I mean, it's just so bleak and horrible, and the fact that people think it's a good idea to redo that play again, the tragic orphan story. No, don't do that one ever again. So I mean, there's so many bad stories. I mean, there's just so many, and it's just there shouldn't even need to be a conversation about how you ought to have a damn good reason to risk rewriting that bad script. All right, anyway, so I'd like to talk, like I said, it's Danny's, it's a very personal thing, being threatened by a health crisis, we'll call it, and, it's his business. So the video's not available currently, as far as I can tell, and he hasn't been real public about the whole thing, in the sense it's not on his regular channel. And that's, again, you got to respect his own, doing it his way. That's certainly his right, and such. So I don't want to fiddle with that in any way, or mess with it in any destructive way. So just to say that, he did have a cancerous lump removed, and the prognosis is not great, and he's going to hope that the assassin slips on a banana peel and falls down a staircase. Doesn't make it anyway, and that's all you can do. So anyway, so I'll play the video. Such seems there's a good enough place. Happens to people that age, and you could be on the list. So yeah, just tell me, you're rolling the dice all the time, but it's, when you're 20, it's, snake eyes is only 1 in 1,000 chance on the dice. The skull and crossbones it's very thin odds year to year, and but as you get older, 5%, 7, 8, 9, 10% chance with each roll that this is the year you don't arrive for the next year. It's your turn to be slaughtered brutally. I just can't believe that people can so glibly cheer for imposing that circumstance on a living being. I mean, it's just so cruel and stupid. Oh, amazing. On the internet, let's say, that reality. So I just pointing out that, that's just kind of unfortunate that there are people. It is difficult, when you're in crisis, you're in pain, you're, got all kinds of problems to make videos, and retain your dignity and be stoic and all that kind of crap when all you want to do is hysterically, be hysterical. Frankly, that's all I want to be. And, damn, terrible position to be in. But people should be aware that that's the reality. And they already are. Like I said, I can't imagine that people have lived some magical existence where they haven't watched people they love, their grandparents or some other thing, be horribly killed. To include me, in his crisis. Yeah, so it was really very nice that he wanted my participation. Found it useful, and I feel good about that. To anyone, just about. And it's just the truth. Nobody will ever be able to say, well, Gary didn't give me a good deal. Yeah, so just defending myself. Frankly, my whole life has just been me trying to do my best and trying to be a good person, and I never thought about really taking from somebody else or stealing. And I always thought about the best interest again. I couldn't even rationally date girls because I always thought, well, she's pretty, man, she could probably do better than me. And so those are the kind of thoughts I would have. So fuck you people, trying to make me into a demon. Fuck you. Slum. Did ever they can, okay, in terms of just showing that eventually they were going to kill them. But anyway, all right. So I dealt with the shittiest of the subjects. I mean, shittiest in terms of it's just terrible that people are so aggressive in their devotion to a narrative, and they will literally force you to be part of their religion. I mean, it's it's really, it's wrong that you can't discuss a subject without being labeled as if you're discussing it for some ulterior motive besides the fact that it doesn't make sense to you. And it's not allowed. You're not allowed to find a circumstance they're devoted to as a truth, to find it incomprehensible mechanically. Like, it just can't happen. I mean, they're telling you there's a Sasquatch, and you're like, sorry, I don't see the evidence of the Sasquatch. So anyway, on the subject of the Holocaust, I've made it clear over and over and over, and I make it clear in this video again. It was this horrific event in human history. Deserves the word Holocaust, deserves this effort to deliberately kill the Jews and the Jewish race. It's clearly all part of the documented facts. No doubt about it. Millions of Jews were killed, murdered horribly. And, that should be enough as a statement. And that the only cause for all of that was moronic bigotry. I mean, just the worst kind of racism, whatever you want to call it, imaginable. It can really be described much worse as a meat grinder, as a Jew grinder. Right, a concentration camp, the camps, that started off as retirement homes. Yeah, not quite. Anyway, so again, it's a taboo subject, clearly. There's just no point in arguing anything. I'm defending a small point, not a big point, and all the big points I concede. There's no resistance to acknowledging it as this horrible event in this stain on the human race, that it was even capable in a semi-modern era of doing something so fucking stupid, cruel, stupid. And things happen. They're part of the you must believe narrative. All right, still on it a little bit. It is but anyway, there's just no doubt that I'm not an anti-Semite. I don't have anything against Jews. I have no agenda to deconstruct Nazism into some sort of great ideology. There's none of that. None, zero. So all of this is just bullshit. I just have some scientific knowledge that makes it impossible for me to believe certain things happened in the magnitude they claim. That doesn't matter to them. That's the part that's so ridiculous. Recognizing the crime and the magnitude of the horror. So recognizing the motivations and the horror of the output isn't enough. And if you do anything less than speak their exact narrative, you are criminally bigoted or something. It's just such shit rhetoric. It's a shit tactic. People should be embarrassed to abuse the Holocaust, to sling mud. And that's all they're doing. They're abusing the Holocaust to try to win points in a let's dirty a messenger argument. I mean, they're the real criminals here in terms of not giving the Holocaust its appropriate status by using it, abusing it to paint this fake narrative. life in a cage in a shelter for 3 months and then death. So I was talking about cats, okay, because I've been accused of having some less than complete devotion to the welfare of feline animals, when clearly I would argue it's exactly the opposite, that my empathy is unbounded towards this particular creature. That I have a huge bias in terms of my relationships with these organisms over a 40-year period. Well, really, it's my whole life. As a kid, we had a cat. Cats have always been around. I've always had relationship to them and found it most pleasant. So this idea that I'm out to kill cats or harm animals is ridiculous. And I've just made rational arguments that cats, unlike people, don't have a quilt to finish. They don't need to tell their grandkittens a story. They don't need to tell them about the time they were in the Depression and blah, 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 blah. So they're, they don't need to do any of that crap. So, anytime they're not conscious and you have the opportunity to wake them up or just allow them to stay in that condition, then the idea is you don't wake them up. Because waking them up just means they're in line to go in the grinder. You're just sentencing them to their murder. Why would you bother doing that? So I wouldn't do surgery on a cat. I wouldn't in any way impose unpleasantness on it, because there's no necessity to. It doesn't need to live, because every cat is doing cat. They're all just licking paws and, purring and doing their little, There's no truly unique cat thing, okay, that needs to happen, or the universe is incomplete. The universe is not at all incomplete if you allow an animal to stay dead and not force it to be killed. Again. Or in some other way. So the argument is that, yes, I had a cat put to sleep who was, say, 12 years old, and it was homeless. And I couldn't keep it. And yeah, I had to pay for it and all that crap and blah, 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 blah. But it was the perfectly decent thing to do. The cat had no place to go. It wasn't going to have some great future. Its home was gone. Everything it knew was disrupted. Its whole lifestyle was turned upside down. There was nothing good could come of whatever you were going to do to that cat. All right? Sitting in a cage in a shelter, or feral. No, those aren't good choices. And so I did the right thing. I gave him a graceful exit. And I don't regret it, and I don't apologize for it, because it was the right fucking thing to do. And there's other circumstances where I've done likewise. So yes, I think animals are entitled to a graceful exit, and if need be, I'll provide it. Not something you never enjoy it. Doing the right thing. No, you don't enjoy it. You do what's necessary. You be a grown-up. And not some silly, immature, emotional shit for brain who thinks everything's going to silver lining, and the silver lining is just going to poof and everything will be just fine. That's bullshit. Those lies cause torture. So fuck you people. Neck. That you couldn't see because it was completely embedded. So I was just giving an example of, for 20 years I was veterinary for, say, 40, the average number, let's say, was 20 feral cats. And I became quite a cat whisperer in terms of trying to get them through bad times. And even to this extreme extent, which is, it's a great story. I mean, it's just, you know, cat had a wound that wasn't healing. And so I, you know, one day it was just decided the cat's going to die if this isn't fixed. So I decided to try to pick at it and see what the hell's going on. And I'm picking at it, and I hit something hard. I'm saying, what the hell? That can't be a bone. You know. And there was a giant talon, 2-inch long owl claw or hawk claw embedded in the neck of the cat. You know, and I pulled it out, and it was fine. You know, so it all worked out really well. So anyway, but it's just, you know, it's an incredible thing I didn't even think was possible. You know, yeah, so, but yes, and it's not fun. There was no fun. I wasn't having fun trying to figure out if I could do anything to help this cat. There wasn't anything fun about it. So fuck you people. You're just so fucking rude. Catch is that there are people who have been screwed up. Not necessarily by molesting. Okay, so the CP subject, you know, child porn, child exploitation, trying to turn me into some defender of exploitation when, no, I'm, again, trying to prevent any harm and to mitigate against the maximum harm and to do something, you know, do a small thing to prevent a big thing. You know, and you know, they won't accept the logic, so they have to sit there and pretend it's not reasonable and that it's not something you're allowed to believe without being defined as an advocate for exploitation. And it's just absolute nonsense. I don't advocate for it. I argue against it. Again, this whole subject came up because I was arguing against a video suggesting the age of consent should be reduced, and I was arguing that it shouldn't be. All right, but then I just pointed out the obvious, which is people who are attracted to children are not innately criminal. It's not their fault that their brain does that. It's something their brain does. It's like blaming somebody for having vertigo or some other conditioned syndrome. It's idiotic to blame them for that, and the only thing you can blame them for is not recognizing they're not allowed to be vampires. They can be hungry for blood, but they can't go take it, okay? And have all the empathy in the world for their struggle is the rational thing to do. And so I defend the idea that if you can give them a more satisfying fantasy life, that you do it and mitigate against the tension and the pressure they feel to act. And there's nothing unreasonable about making that statement. If you can give them a synthetic replacement, you give it to them. It's like giving heroin addicts morphine. It does make sense. The logical attitude, and that's all it is. And I can't say there's ever been a day I felt sexually incomplete. Kind of way to. So just talking about, you know, why I have empathy for people that are in some way handy, disabled, whatever, not normal, you know. Not normally configured, however the best way to describe the difference, whatever, that leads to some dissatisfaction. So there's lots of people who don't find their sex life gratifying, don't find, you know, their identity gratifying, may not even find their appearance gratifying, lots of things getting in their way. And I was fortunate that I've never had anything in my way, and I'm grateful for that, in the sense that I could be satisfied without a partner or with one. It just didn't matter, and still doesn't matter, frankly. You know, especially in the egregious cases, you can't do that. And so my simple argument is that as I understand human psychology, frankly, it is just about allowing them to create enough of a fantasy. Right, so I'm just giving some of the logic behind it. You don't have to just agree with it, but just agree that I am not saying something obnoxious to some sort of some sort of statement within the realm of reasonable. It's not something you have any evidence to prove is completely contrary to the truth. You don't have that evidence. Somehow I'm suggesting the law be changed? No. So whatever. So yeah, so the whole subject's a big fat lie, canard, to imply, okay, that I'm suggesting something I'm not. I'm just suggesting if you have porn that's already criminaled, it's already done its victiming, you might as well, if you can use it to prevent a future act, then do it. And I will argue that I think it will prevent more than it will cause. So it's a bad idea to burn it. Okay, that ever needs to exist. But if you keep burning it, then you need... yeah, so... Again, you're just creating a market. Disgusting! Yeah, so I don't know what that part is. Nature to kill your kid. Just a fact. In some usually brutal way. So having a kid is basically sentencing it to death, and that's just the truth. So I'm making the point that I think having a kid is just as bad as deciding to kill somebody. Now, you could kill them as a mercy killing. You could kill them because they asked you to help kill them. You know, or you could kill them as a complete violation of their interests. And I would argue that people have kids without considering the interest of their child. And the fact that it may not find the agenda, okay, at all appealing. For example. But emotional to be rational. You know, I can't make an agreement. So I was just talking about how this blended into an argument about contracts and feminism, and the fact that somehow we're supposed to think that women don't have to be, their word doesn't have to mean anything because they're all emotional, and they can't make commitments to honor. They don't have to honor their commitments. So if they say, yes, I understand, if I get pregnant, I have an abortion, and they make an agreement, they really don't have any right to change the agreement unilaterally. It's a significant thing making a baby with somebody, and you don't have a right to drag their portion of the contribution you know, to the birthing canal. Everything is so much better. Everything's improved. He's not consuming food and oxygen anymore. All right, so I was just making a point that I've made comments in videos about how, yeah, cops should beat up speeders, or, you know, they should just shoot them, you know, on sight. You know, and that I don't have any empathy. I think they do deserve whatever the worst they can get, because what they're doing is ridiculously offensive and rude and impositional. They're imposing risk for absolutely no good reason. All the other great apes have a minute percentage of... So I was talking about vegetarianism and veganism, and how it's perfectly reasonable for vegans to perceive carnivores as mass murdering, you know, horrible, evil monsters, and yet they're expected to, you know, and they do in most cases, recognize that that perception, although insanely valid, can't be acted on under the current social contract, and that they need to change the social contract. Chasing a mouse, or so you can see it. You can see them having adventures. Look at the size. And if I was to say it's cruel for you to, you know, torment a pig, for example, in a little tiny pen, the worst kind, you know, it's just, It really is just insane that people would defend their right. They're worth it. They're worth torturing animals. No, you're not worth it. Fact. Your song and dance is not that interesting. These life lovers aren't panicked by. So they're so small in their perception of reality, so small in their understanding of the physical world we live in, they don't even realize that just as they were born randomized, yes, they have arrived on Earth from nowhere, and they're arrived. Whoa, I'm here. And that's what's going to keep happening, is people are just going to arrive here. And you're sentencing people to arrive here on garbage dumps and in cesspools and in Muslim shitholes. And that's what you're defending? Fuck you. I don't want to wake up there. They won't even have the technology to watch this video. I mean, the deprivation is obscene. You know, most of the human race is living in shit. And you people are defending it? Gross. In some way being forced to feed their agenda. So I didn't like being told. So I was just pointing out how, yes, I was a very nice person, but I didn't like being, just as I wasn't going to steal from somebody else or take or manipulate them to get what I wanted, I wasn't going to be manipulated by them so they could get what they wanted. I didn't like rules that existed for the takers rather than the givers to somehow attack the message. And clearly I've made these distinctions. The subject of ephilism isn't my opinion of pregnant women or something. Right, so the subject is just a simple understanding of this mechanical universe that creates these sentient machines that are built to lay eggs, you know, replicate a molecule. That's the reason why it exists, is to replicate the molecule. And the whole narrative, the whole CPU is obsessed with a bunch of nonsense, like a bird picking up blue things and putting them in the nest so the chicks will like him. It's all just silly crap. And it comes at this monstrous huge price of brutal deconstruction and death. And nobody rational should say, good idea. What a brilliant plan. No. Humans left, and they know the agenda, what the script says. You know, they can see that, yeah, they got to be the ones to clean it up. So I was just talking about this whole thing comes down to the pragmatic fact that you're not going to be able to dole out condoms to the animals, that even if you could, they won't know how to use them. You're not going to find some solution that is pristinely beautiful. You're going to have to accept that it's an omelet, you got to break some eggs kind of thing. That you're going to have to bite a little bit of a bullet. Now the fact is that the humans don't really have to die. We'll just gracefully lower population through the regular attrition. No harm involved, no extra harm involved at all. And because, you know, most of the civilized world, again, is already doing that. So they don't have to change anything. And the only people you have to change are the uncivilized. And that's hardly a criminal idea, that we should make the uncivilized civilized. Ooh, horror, horror. What would the world be like without ignorance and poverty? Oh, wouldn't that be just terrible if we got rid of that? And obviously if you get rid of that, you also get rid of procreation, and you also exterminate the human race, because the educated people don't have kids as entertainment, and they don't have them as stupid mistakes, and they don't have them as blah 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 religious sacrifices. They don't have them for all those dumb reasons. And so they don't sufficiently do the replacement population thing. And they don't do it not because they're effortless, but because their life is more enjoyable without having 10 kids. Anyway, so that's the real subject. And, the real subject is that, yes, the biosphere will probably have to be annihilated in some event, okay, that will involve living things becoming dead things. But it can be done so gracefully that no harm actually has to be experienced. That's effortism. Effortism isn't saying how you solve the problem. Effortism is a description of what's the word? It's a diagnosis. It's not a prescription. It's a diagnosis. It's saying the thing is broken, stupid, and wasteful. And it's merely, that's all it's saying. It's not telling you how to fix it. It's telling you what's broken. That you're insufficiently efficient. You're not worth it. Reproduction, with what I claim pragmatically is the only realistic solution, is to cheat the theory and to cheat the argument. The argument merely is it needs to be stopped, and you find the most grace. Yeah, so the point is that, again, it's a prescription is not the argument. The diagnosis is the argument. It's just biological warfare. There's no point in us endorsing biology in a world war with itself. Animals eating each other is stupid. A kid and raise it and turn it into a human being and have some hope it's going to come out all okay. I just can't even imagine why I'd want to do that. Why would I want to worry? I mean, the whole idea of these people who think this idea of making humans is fun, the very idea that they can enjoy it just points out to me how they are sadistic lunatics. Because there's so much at stake and the risk is everywhere. How could you have a moment's peace and comfort? As soon as your kid is out of sight, he's in your mind. That's how it would work. He'll be your obsession when you can see him. He'll be even a bigger obsession when you can't. I mean, there's just no way a decent person says, I can't wait, to have the responsibility to raise a human being successfully. Because it's not an easy job. It's a really hard job, and they think it's a nothing job. They think you just sign it up for preschool, and you just sign it up for this, and you sign it up for that, and you don't pay any attention otherwise. That's what they think being a parent is. Delusional insanity. So I'd be stuck because, I gotta wait till he gets distracted. So I was talking about when I was a kid, I did babysit, and I hated it. And, and there was a particular example, it was just so, it was a life lesson. So again, it's one of those things where this is the kind of stuff that makes you an ethicist, okay? I mean, you do a nice thing, but you look at this mongoloid child, doesn't, he's half bald and, he's got all kinds of physical defects, and he's trapped in this nightmare that he lives in, and you're horrified. And I was appropriately horrified. And I don't understand why anybody would say, let's try again. The people who had the kid didn't try again, I'll tell you that. Why the fuck would you want to have a kid and have dreams of him living in this cesspool of a civilization? Yeah, I'm just talking about, everything is so goddamn grotesquely ugly. the humans have gotten so trolly and useless and full of shit. They're all such lying scum everywhere. How the fuck could anybody think it's a great idea to have a kid? Fuck you. I think I said fuck you in the video, but yeah, fuck you twice. At least twice. And I've explained all of that. But there's reasons you can understand why humans are the way they are, and you can also understand that we're still animals on the inside. Yeah, that's the problem. Too driven, by all this emotional crap, and too under-disciplined by enlightening factual knowledge of reality. Still clinging to their fables and lies. Alright, that's the end. So, I think I'll leave it at that and such. Trying times. It's just so many silly distractions, all this bullshit. But whatever, endeavor to persevere and to see. Maybe we get into the actual summer, and maybe there'll be some. Yeah, maybe it'll be better than it currently is. Just a lot of shit. Shit to deal with. Anyway, and that's life, dealing with shit. Just so annoying, right? Because when you get, you get one pile of stink out of your life, another pile of stink shows up. I mean, you just can't get rid of these. There's just no perfect insecticide. There's always something that's going to show up to start, chewing on your soul. So anyway, till the next time, and such and so forth and whatnot. Blah, 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 blah. Endeavor to persevere. And such.